So today, let's get into the story of Ludwig van Beethoven. But we're not starting with the famous wild-haired legend.
No, not at
We're
all.
going back to the very beginning. We're looking at the foundation, the pressure and the choices that made him a master before he even turned 30.
Exactly. This is really about the blueprint. We're looking at how a really strict, almost brutal childhood in Bonn,
Hmm?
and then a huge career move to Vienna set him up, not just to succeed, but to eventually break all the rules and change music forever.
So if you want to understand the fire in his big symphonies, you have to start here.
You really do.
Okay, let's start in Bonn, Germany, 1770. The first big fact is that his birth came with this immense pressure.
Yeah, his father, Johann, was a musician.
Mm.
And he got completely fixated on this idea that young Ludwig had to be a child prodigy.
Like Mozart.
Specifically, like Mozart, he wanted the next Mozart.
And that meant the training was less than gentle.
Oh, absolutely. It was
Yeah.
rigid, intense. Ludwig was forced to practice piano for hours and hours every single day.
And under really strict conditions, right?
Right. There are stories of him being dragged out of bed in the middle of the night to practice. It was a very difficult childhood, all designed to, well, to forge a genius.
But what's so amazing is that it worked. I mean, despite all that pressure, the talent was real.
It was completely authentic. He wasn't just good at playing scales. He had this natural gift for making up his own melodies, for composing, from a really early age.
So the genius was already in there. It wasn't just manufactured.
Correct. And his education was pretty broad, too. It wasn't only piano. He also studied the organ and the violin.
Which would give him a much better feel for the whole orchestra later on.
Exactly. And by the time he was a teenager, people in Bonn noticed. He got his first real job as an assistant organist.
And he was already writing his first pieces there in Germany?
Little pieces, yeah. But he was getting experience. He was learning the craft before he even left home.
Okay, so that brings us to this huge turning point. Early 20s, he makes the jump. He moves to Vienna.
A massive leap.
And this wasn't just like moving to a new city. This was a calculated risk, wasn't it? Why Vienna?
Well, at that time, Vienna was the center of the universe for music. It was the capital.
That's where everyone was.
Every important composer, every wealthy person who might support you, they were all in Vienna. He went there to build a real career and, most importantly, to study with Joseph Haydn.
Who was like the most famous composer alive at that point?
Arguably, yes. So going there into that competitive world was a make-or-break moment.
So how does he stand out? The city's already full of incredible musicians.
He did it with his piano playing. He quickly became known as this brilliant virtuoso, especially at these private concerts in the palaces of the rich nobles.
But his style was different.
Radically different. I mean, everyone else was playing this delicate, elegant music. Beethoven comes in, and he plays with this incredible power and passion. It was something new.
And we hear a lot about his skill at improvisation. What did that actually look like for the audience?
It means he was literally making music up on the spot.
With no notes written down?
0 notes. Someone would give him a little melody, a theme, and he'd spin it into these complex emotional pieces right in front of everyone.
Wow.
It was thrilling to watch. His playing was just so much more dramatic than anything they had ever heard. He got their attention immediately.
Okay, so he's already this kind of rebellious celebrity performer. Why bother with boring, formal lessons? Studying things like counterpoint.
But that's the genius of his strategy. Counterpoint is, well, it's the art of weaving multiple melodies together. It's the absolute bedrock of complex music.
So he needed the fundamentals.
He knew if he wanted to write these huge revolutionary symphonies, he needed the strongest possible foundation. He learned the rules inside and out so that when he broke them, he knew exactly what he was doing.
And he studied with Haydn, who was a master of the rules, even though they clashed constantly.
They did. Beethoven was too rebellious for him. And his studies didn't stop there. He also took lessons from Antonio Salieri.
The guy from the Mozart movie.
The very same. He went to Salieri specifically to learn how to write for the human voice.
Why was that so important for someone who mostly wrote for instruments?
It taught him how to create those beautiful singing melodies you hear in his sonatas and his quartets. It was a crucial skill.
On top of all that, he was basically teaching himself.
Constantly. He spent hours and hours just analyzing the scores of Mozart and Bach, trying to figure out how they worked.
So he's combining this deep knowledge of the rules with his own bold and emotional ideas.
He was a sponge. He was getting ready to be the next big step in music history. And that led right to his professional debut.
This is where the talent meets the business side of things. His first official published works. It was a really smart move.
A very calculated move. He didn't come out with a symphony. That would have been too risky, too expensive.
So what'd he do?
He launched his career with what's called his Opus 1. It was a set of 3 piano trios.
A trio is for piano, violin, and cello.
Exactly. And it was a brilliant choice because it was a popular genre. Wealthy families could buy the music and play it themselves at home. It was marketable.
And it worked.
It was a huge success, earned him money, and he very smartly dedicated the pieces to a wealthy prince, which secured him a powerful patron. It proved he was a serious professional.
So with the piano as his main instrument, he really focused on the piano sonata.
Yes, and he completely transformed it. He took this form that was supposed to be elegant and balanced, and he just injected it with pure drama.
He was literally pushing the instrument to its limits, right, using more of the keyboard than anyone had before.
A much wider range, from the lowest rumbles to the highest tinkling notes. His sonatas were incredibly difficult to play.
And a perfect example of this is the Pathetic Sonata.
The prime example. It's so intense, so sad. And what really shocked people was how he used sudden, violent changes in volume.
Going from super quiet to super loud in an instant.
Right. Musicians call it sforzando. It breaks the classical idea of smooth, predictable emotions. It felt raw and personal. He was basically saying that feelings don't follow rules.
But he wasn't just a piano guy. He was also mastering writing for strings.
He had to. He composed 6 string quartets. So that's for 2 violins, a viola, and a cello.
And this was him proving himself to his peers.
Exactly. Proving he could handle that complex 4-way musical conversation.
Yeah.
You can hear his teachers, Haydn and Mozart, in the structure.
Cut.
But he fills them with his own rhythmic energy and these surprising twists. He was showing he could master the small group just as well as the solo piano. This is the final step before tackling the full orchestra.
Okay, so he's mastered the piano, he's conquered chamber music. What happens when he finally takes on the symphony? This is where he really starts disrupting things.
It all comes together with his first symphony in the year 1800. Now, back then, a symphony was supposed to start, well, politely.
Gracefully.
Yes, gracefully. You establish the main key, you welcome the listener in. Beethoven decided to do the exact opposite.
What did he do?
His symphony starts on a weird, tense chord that sounds like it's in the wrong key. Critics were totally surprised. Some thought he was being cheeky or even arrogant.
And the whole piece was like that.
Full of energy. And he used the wind instruments, flutes, oboes in really new, important ways. It gave the orchestra a totally different sound. It felt modern.
And this leads to an even bigger change he was part of. He didn't want his music to just be for rich people in their palaces.
No, he wanted everyone to hear it. So he started organizing his own public concerts.
Where anyone could buy a ticket.
Anyone. This was a huge deal. It changed the power dynamic. Suddenly, he's building a relationship directly with the public, not just with the nobility.
And he'd perform his own piano concertos at these events, right? He was the star.
He was the star. And these performances, plus his look, the wild hair, the intense way he played, it turned him into a huge celebrity in Vienna.
I've heard he was so physical when he played that he'd actually break the piano strings.
That's the legend. And all this popularity, this ticket money, it allowed him to do something very few musicians had ever done.
Live independently.
Financially independent. He didn't need a single boss paying his salary. He lived off a mix of commissions, selling his sheet music, and those concert tickets.
And that freedom is so important.
It's critical. Because he lived during the Enlightenment, this period of ideas about freedom and human dignity. And since he wasn't tied to a single boss, his music could be about those things.
Heroic, personal, strong.
Exactly. He was writing music that expressed his own deep feelings, not just pretty background music for a dinner party.
You can really hear that heroism. But just as he's reaching this incredible peak, tragedy starts to creep in.
Yes. This is one of the most heartbreaking parts of his story. Right around his late 20s, he starts noticing a strange ringing in his ears.
The constant ringing.
And slowly, he realizes the terrible truth. He's losing his hearing. For a musician, it's the worst thing you can imagine.
And he was ashamed of it. He tried to hide it.
Deeply ashamed. He'd avoid people. He used these little metal ear trumpets that didn't really help much.
The emotional turmoil must have been just unbelievable.
The world was literally going silent around him.
Huh.
But this is where you see his true determination. He did not stop.
He kept composing.
He kept composing, kept playing. He had to learn to hear the music entirely inside his head without any sound from the outside world.
And that struggle, it actually made his music deeper, didn't it?
It absolutely did. It forced him away from trying to please an audience and toward writing music that was just pure internal truth.
Wow.
And that truth is what made him the bridge to the next era of music.
Yeah.
But before we finish, we have to mention one more early piece, the septet.
Oh, right. This one was for 7 instruments.
And it was a massive hit.
Yeah.
Super catchy, played everywhere, all across Europe. It even made it to America.
And the fun fact is that Beethoven himself kind of grew to hate it.
Yeah. He got so annoyed by it because it was so popular for being light and fun, and he wanted people to focus on his more serious, complex work.
But it shows his range.
It does. And his entire early career just set the stage for everything to come. He took the classical style of Haydn and Mozart and just pumped it full of emotion and power. He paved the way for the entire Romantic era.
So his journey from that pressured kid in Bonn to this independent, groundbreaking professional in Vienna that built the foundation for a legend, he proved that music could, and maybe should, express the deepest parts of the human experience.
And every time you hear a piece of music today that has a sudden dramatic shift or a huge emotional leap, you're still hearing an echo of Beethoven breaking the rules.
So think about that next time you listen to a composer from that era. Were they just following the rules, or were they secretly planning how to break them? Good luck with your studies.